welcome everybody back to the Inside Our Galaxy podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hernandez. As always, we got to talk about our 2-1 win that happened over the weekend against the Houston Dynamo at home. We finally snap our 5-game winless streak. We now get a win back, and again, like I said, at home in front of our fans, a 2-1 win where you got to see Gabriel Peck score, you got to see Ricky Puig score, and just, you know, and another comeback for the Galaxy after being down 1-0 in the first half. So you got to see a lot of good things from this game, and of course we're going to talk about those things in this game, our thoughts, our opinions, everything about that. Of course, we also have 2 previews lined up this week. One against FC Dallas, which is at home on Wednesday, and then we're back on the road against the Chicago Fire on Saturday. So again, 2 previews, something that we did not too long ago. So should be a lot of things to conversate about, a lot of things to talk about, and yeah, I mean, of course, we're glad you're all here. And of course, with me as always is my co-host, LA Galaxy Central. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day outside, and obviously I'm very happy that we finally won a game, and that feels really good.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, it is. Well, as of right now, while we're recording, it's Memorial Day, so a lot of people, had the day off. I had to have a day off from one of my jobs because I work 2 jobs, so I got a day off from one of them. So I felt pretty good to sleep in today. In fact, just in general, this weekend I got to sleep in a lot, and I felt like that was relieving with like everything I had during the week. So obviously it was, a nice little weekend. Of course, the Galaxy won, which was a big plus for the weekend. So, but yeah, I mean, it feels good, of course. And like I said, it's Memorial Day. So I hope everybody's, having a good day off and things like that. So, and of course, remembering all the, fallen heroes, because that's what Memorial Day is about, right? So, but anyways, yeah, of course, beautiful day. We're glad you're here, man. And of course, we're here to talk about Galaxy Soccer. So let's talk about the game that happened on Saturday. Like I said, it was a 2-1 win against the Houston Dynamo. You got to go from Ricky Puig. You got to go from Gabriel Peck. And we even said going into this game, we need players to step up. We need our DPs to maybe not necessarily step up, but definitely show out, which they did in this game. And of course, at first in the game, it probably wasn't the best performance from the Galaxy. Maybe people had their doubts. Of course, you had the mistake from McCarthy with the 1-0 lead for Houston. And yeah, I mean, at first it was just sort of kind of like, all right, maybe we are in this sort of like slump and it's going to continue. And, maybe you had your doubts in this game, but of course, Gabriel Peck gets a goal in the first half. He brings life to the Galaxy. Then the second half, you get the second goal by Ricky Puig, and we ultimately win the game. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's good to have a win, especially not getting a win in so long. So of course, we'll start off with you, man. How'd you feel about the game? What are your thoughts? And break it down for me, man.
Yeah, obviously it's great to get the win. This is the first time under Greg Vanney that we've managed to win a game while conceding the first goal, not once, but 2 times in one season. We never did that before. In 2021, we only came back to win one game one time, and in 2022, we did that one time. And in 2023, when we conceded the first goal, we never came back to win. We didn't win a single match when we conceded the first goal. So to be able to do that not once but twice in the season is definitely really good. I think the start was all right. We came out, we were decent. It was kind of an average start, an even game. And then a mistake happens, a very, very bad mistake at home, gets us down 1-0. You don't feel very good at that point. It feels kind of demoralizing a little bit. It was definitely very upsetting to see that. But we continued to play, we didn't get distracted or off task. And then, we concede a lot of goals at bad times. I think that's a problem a lot of people had with this team. But it was finally good to be able to score a goal at a good time right before halftime. That was a very important goal to get. Very good play from Yamane to cross it into Peck. Very good finish. You're very happy with that going into the break tied. You kind of have some momentum going into the second half. Maybe you think we can get a goal. And then Ricky Puig, steps up in a big moment off an assist from Gabriel Peck. That was really good. Gives us a lead. And then it was about managing the game, right? Once we got that lead at home, that's been kind of a problem. Like even last week in Minnesota, we had a 2-1 lead. So there was some doubt if we were going to hold on to it. But hey, you got to give everyone credit for this one. I think Greg Vanney made some great decisions, great subs, which was something we were very critical of. But I think this game, he definitely did a really good job managing the game. I think the players did a good job. And we pick up a really big win at home, a win we needed to get, a win that was very doable. And I'm glad we got it. And it was very important at the time it came.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? You got to see a lot of this game. Obviously, you got to see a good team performance. You got to see a lot of players step up in this game. A lot of players, some players who maybe weren't having the best of games recently, and then they also played very good in this game. Obviously, one of those was being Mark Delgado, which I think he, had a bounce back game for sure, with the recent weeks he's been having. And then obviously you got to see resilience in this game, right? Something that we've been seeing a lot this season. Of course, we've had a lot of comebacks and a lot of moments where, and like you mentioned, this is the second time where we've been down, losing, and then we end up winning the game, and it's happened twice this season, and that's something good to see as well. And I mean, yeah, and not only just that, like you obviously win the game because obviously there's been moments where we've come back and we've tied, but this one was a win, which was pretty good. So you got to see a lot of resilience from this team, and I think that's great to see. And yeah, I mean, obviously, it was just good to see the team win, right? Like I think it was something that everybody was hoping for, everybody was getting frustrated about, and this was a good opportunity for the Galaxy to get back on track at home in front of your fans. And yeah, I mean, and they showed out. And again, your players showed out, that your best, and especially your star players showed out in this game. And it was just something where, I think it was just relieving, right? It was relieving to see this Galaxy team perform the way they did and get the win, get the 3 points, and then, obviously, hopefully, they can continue that, right? Because obviously this week is going to be a difficult week, having two games. Of course, one of them is going to be at home, so at least that's a positive for them. But still, having two games in 1 week is very tough. And so now you're going into a week where it's tough, but you're coming off a win. So at least this should be good for the Galaxy. It could give them momentum. We'll see how this week goes, but just getting this win was relieving, and I think you have to give credit to a lot of people, like to almost everybody, right? The players, the coaching staff, obviously, like they just came up big in this one. And I think, getting this win was, big for them, and definitely good for them to get back on track.
Yeah, quite honestly, our difference makers were our difference makers, and that's something you really love to see. That's what you want in a DP player, and they totally won us that match.
Yeah, definitely. And especially because one of your DPs is missing too, right? So it's like we talked about that last week with Joseph Payne still being out. We said like, hey, like, they got to step up without having Joseph Paintsel, because he's obviously a weapon when he's on the field. He's obviously, again, another difference maker on the field. And yeah, your difference makers were the ones who won you this game. And, obviously, like we said, especially for Gabriel Peck, like I said, like he needs to step up because of Paintsel being out, gets a goal, gets an assist. He definitely did what he needed to do in this game. And of course, like with him being out a couple more weeks, Gabriel Peck's going to have to keep doing stuff like this, right? He's going to have to keep this momentum going. And it's not just him, right? It's Ricky Puig also being Ricky Puig, doing what he needs to do. It's the midfield trying to, have a great chemistry, have a good connection, which they did in this game from what I saw. And of course, the defense just not making the mistakes, but also being, making those, as well, just defending as well as they can, right? Not conceding set pieces, not, you know, getting goals on the run of play, and of course not making those mistakes that we just had this weekend, which again, was a big, I guess, topic of conversation with that mistake that McCarthy did. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's like it was something a little more demanding that we needed from the Galaxy, and they delivered. In fact, I think you even went into this game saying like, you don't know how you feel about this going into this game. It was kind of like up in the air, and I felt the same way too. And they ended up getting the best overall outcome in this game, which was getting the 3 points at home. And I don't think anybody is disappointed with those 3 points at home.
Not at all.
No, not at all. But yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of good things in there. Like, obviously, like I want to talk actually about the mistake that we conceded that goal, because a lot of people were talking about that goal. Yeah, I mean, obviously, just not the way you want to, to play out the back. And I think just like, everybody was, kind of out on McCarthy on that point when they had that mistake, and just I don't know, like it was pretty surprising to see that. Like I didn't think, obviously we talked about his distribution sometimes, and obviously it hasn't affected us like to the point where you can see the goal, but this was the first time you got to see it. So like I don't know how you felt about when that mistake happened, but it was pretty shocking to see that. Like that's how you get to concede a first goal, don't you think?
Yeah, it's just unacceptable, honestly. Like at a certain point, I just feel like in general in our own half we need to make better decisions. Like sometimes I feel like we go long when we have a midfielder or a winger open, Or sometimes, like in that situation, you just need to get the ball out for a throw in. Heck, even for a corner kick, if you really just can't go anywhere, he can kick it backwards, and I guess he can go out for a corner kick. Just playing it there straight into the opponent was just something that just cannot be happening, especially at home in a tied match. Big mistake. And I think John McCarthy owes the DPs and Yamane a beer, a lunch, a foot massage, whatever, because he got definitely bailed out that game.
A foot massage. I just imagine him just like, hey, here, let me just massage your foot real quick, like right after practice. Nah,
They owe him
but
one.
yeah, yeah, he owes him one. Maybe, who knows? McCarthy get to it, but nah, I'm just kidding. But of course, yeah, like obviously that's just not a good thing to see. And actually, this is a good topic too, because we've seen like the Galaxy like recently just in the openings of the games, maybe not being there 100%, maybe not necessarily setting the tempo at some times, and then they seems to bring it back later towards the second half, or even in this game towards the end of the first half, going into the second half. How do you feel about the Galaxy sort of like having these slow starts and then sort of building into the game? Do you like the way that they're playing like that, or do you think like this is something that isn't necessarily like sustainable for the Galaxy this season?
I mean, obviously, it would be great if they were very good for all 90 minutes because that would make a complete match. But it's good that they play well, usually in important moments, right? Like they get a goal right before halftime, which was really big. And then they get the next goal in the match in the second half. And then they make the right adjustments to close out the game. So if you're making important plays at important stages in the matches, I think that's really good. But yes, obviously, we do have to get off to a lot better of a start just to set the tone, especially at home, too. We really need to get on the front foot more often.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And again, like with this one goal, that wasn't necessarily the right tone, but again, they made the right plays at the right time, in in those instances, right? So, yeah, I mean, obviously it was great to see those performances. Yeah, obviously it was great to see, obviously the team competing the way that they can. But do you got any other thoughts you want to talk about the game before we move on?
No, a very good team performance. I'm very happy with it. It was at home. It was a very important win, and hopefully we can build off it now.
Yeah, definitely for sure. So, but of course, we can talk about the players, of course, in their individual performances in this game. Which, of course, like we mentioned before, a lot of players stepped up. A lot of players, came in and performed the way they needed to. So let's talk about the defense first. Of course, you had John McCarthy at goal. You had Mickey Yamane in the defense as your right back. You had Julian Aude starting as your left back, and then you had Maya Yoshida and Martin Cáceres starting as your center backs. Obviously, we already talked about McCarthy and the way that mistake that he happened, but any other thoughts on the defense that you had in this game? Any other players that stood out to you?
Yeah, obviously McCarthy was very shaky. We already went over that. I really like the veteran center back pairing. Like I think at home that was a good decision to do that at home to set the tone, set a presence in the back line, create a physical back line. I actually really did like the veteran presence that game. I think it made a lot of sense. Julian Alde played okay. I don't think he was like great or too bad. He just played like all right. I think taking him off at some point again was a good decision, which we'll talk about the subs, but I think we got a lot of things right. And then Yamane, I mean, outside of the DPs, easily the best player on the field. Saving a goal off the line. That was a huge play to keep us only at 1-0 down. We could have gone 2-0 down. If we go 2-0 down, I don't think we're winning that game. And then he creates the game time cross to Gabriel Peck. It's a perfectly placed cross on his head, and Gabriel Peck finishes it. It's a great cross, really good play. Yaman is responsible for keeping a goal out of our net and creating a goal on the other end. Outstanding performance, one of the best right backs in MLS, honestly, who's not going to get the credit he deserves because this Galaxy defense is not very good and they don't have a good reputation. But Yamani all year has just been a great piece in our defense. In this game, he really stood out for us.
Yeah, 100%. Like Mickey Yamane, if anything, he was the man of the match of this game, right? The way that he played obviously didn't only just contribute to the defense, contributed to the offense, and obviously that's just our style of play, right? Is that our fullbacks have to contribute both sides of the ball, and I think this was one game where, of course, obviously we know Mickey Yamane is consistent, he's great defensively, but this was a game where you definitely got to see more of his offensive side with that assist and the way he was contributing, towards the offense. And of course, the goal line save that he had in this game, which was, massive for this team to stay in it, and, maybe that if that would have went in, that could have changed the complexity of the game for sure. Right. So obviously him getting that was big. And yeah, Mickey Mane was definitely the star of this game, the man of the match of this game. Like he went out and also, made it to the team of the week, right? So that's another thing as well. He's in the team of the week, definitely deserves 100%. for his performance. Of course, the center backs, like you mentioned, wasn't necessarily bad either. Obviously, age plays a big factor when you have those two in, but the veteranship and the leadership portion of those two center backs being there is definitely great and to have. And yeah, they didn't play that bad. They didn't necessarily, didn't make many mistakes in that back line either. And then Julia, now they played, okay, like you mentioned, you end up taking him out in the second half, which was, something that I think we should have done. And, of course, Johnny Nelson is not a bad depth piece either. So, him going in wasn't bad either, a bad choice. So, yeah, I mean, obviously defensively, and again, it's just one of those things where it's like they're great on the run of play, but it's just the mistakes that kind of like, messes us up, and getting a goal conceded and things like that. So like if you look at it overall, it's like, they didn't play bad, but again, with that McCarthy mistake and playing out the back, just, was the bad part of the defense. And again, that wasn't even necessarily on this, like the whole defense. It was just the way McCarthy did that, right? So definitely for sure the defense played, solid in this game for sure.
I will say about the defense, though, I still think it's very concerning. We have no idea who the partner is next to Maya Yoshida still. Like, it changes every week, and even right now, we have no idea who it might be.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And we even mentioned this last week, but Maya Yoshida hasn't gotten a break at all. in, in
No.
the starting lineup. I even he's played every single, well, maybe not every single minute, but he's been playing every single game.
He has actually. He has been every single minute.
Geez,
He has
so
actually. He has. Yeah, I looked it up.
well, there you go. He's played every single minute, so it's like, yeah, definitely for sure. Like he's gonna have to get his break at some point, which who knows when that'll happen. But hey, you know what? He's a trooper. He's a leader. That's why he's the captain, right? So, but still though, like yeah, I mean, definitely for sure, it's concerning because like it switches every week. And but I will say this though, it's not necessarily it switches every week, because obviously last year it switched every week, but it was because it like in comparison to last year, it was like because we had injuries, we just weren't that good, so we had to keep switching every single week. So I guess it like the good thing about switching this every single week, at least this point, or maybe not every single week, but at least we have been switching quite often. I guess the good thing is that necessarily it's that we're not losing games, or it's not like necessarily the fact that we're playing bad every time we switch a game or anything, or switch a partner with Maya Yoshida or anything like that. So I mean, it's concerning, but it's not to the point where it's like losing us games, or dropping points. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just wondering where Carlos Garces is. Like, we haven't even seen him one time. Not even just for a start, just on the field in general. That's kind of like, okay, then maybe he's not as good as maybe we thought he could be.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I don't, because he was there. I know he was warming up at the game. He was available on the bench. So it's like I don't know. It's like, are they taking their time with him? Is it maybe just not necessarily, like you mentioned, like maybe he's not as good as we think he is? But I don't think it's necessarily that. It's just more like maybe they're just like trying to get him accustomed to the league. But even then, it's like, how are you going to get him accustomed to it if he's not playing any games, getting any minutes, right? So like, it doesn't make sense for that to happen. Like, I get it, the first, few games, it's like, all right, this is, how it works in MLS. This is how we travel. This is how this and that. And I get that. But then now it's already been, a couple games where you could have put him in, you could have maybe given him a start. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know. That's a very interesting situation. I think people need to, I don't know if like anybody needs to start asking about that, but definitely for sure, it's like weird that he hasn't gotten any minutes. And I think, at some point he should get some minutes.
I mean, we have 2 games this week. Maybe this is a chance for him to get some minutes.
Yeah, true. You never know. So which again, I guess we'll talk about those in the previews, I guess. But yeah, I mean, definitely for sure, maybe he could get some minutes this week. But yeah, anything you want to say else about the defense, or should we move on into the midfield?
Yeah, very solid from open play. Just conceded off one mistake. Obviously, we talk about basically every week we got to limit these mistakes. They can really cost you. But overall, it's good to see the defense is playing really well for the most part.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I mean, again, one mistake, but we just got to fix those at some point, which again, it doesn't seem like we have fixed them yet, but hopefully we do. But let's talk about the midfield. Of course, you had your starting midfield. You had Ricky Puig, you had Mark Delgado, you had Gaston Brugman in this game. Of course, you got to see a bounce back game from Mark Delgado. I think he played much better than what he's been playing these past few weeks. Of course, Ricky Puig gets a goal. He ends up doing what he does, and then yeah, Gaston Brugman, of course, also just when you saw him in, believe it was the second goal, just making those runs and making and contributing as well. And I think you got to see the midfield just in general bounce back, from these past few weeks where they don't look like they've been playing that great or the chemistry isn't 100% there. But this game looked like they were 100% and they looked good in this one. But what were your thoughts about the midfield and how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, the midfield was much better, a lot more energy brought, which you would expect at home, which was great to see. I thought Bergman played a great game at center defensive midfield. He did really good distributing, making runs, recovering the ball. Delgado played a lot better too, doing what he does best. Those effort plays, defending, he did really well. And Ricky Pooch did really good too. His goal was incredible. Should have had an assist to Gabriel Peck too, which is kind of funny that Gabriel Peck can't score if Ricky Pooch passes to him apparently. But yeah, Ricky played really well, scored the game-winning goal. Should have had another assist, was involved all night. I think our midfield did very well. This is the type of performance you want to see from them, especially at home. And they definitely did their job, and that's what we've been waiting to see.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Also, Ricky went blonde, which was a big topic of conversation from this game. I
Good
really,
news.
yeah, good news as well. Yeah, which would, obviously that interview where you're saying like, there's good news coming this week. Whenever this episode comes out, maybe that news is already out. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's good news coming out supposedly via Ricky. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Ricky played great, other than just him being blonde and, people were saying he was a Super Saiyan and, Dragon Ball references and the celebration, everything like that, right? So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, Ricky Pooge did his thing, does what he always does, just again, contributes any way he can, gets the goal and a game winning goal. So that's great. And, again, just the midfield in general, just a big bounce back for them, from these past couple of weeks. And I think, again, we talked about Mark Delgado a lot these past couple of weeks, and I think he looked very good, was basically the engine of that midfield. And yeah, I mean, it looked like he was getting a lot better. It didn't he didn't look sluggish. He didn't look as tired or just, lost in the like he has been these past couple of weeks. So I definitely think he's starting to get his groove back from that sickness that he had. So it's good to see him getting a bounce back win and or bounce back game. And then, yeah, just in general, the midfield played great. And yeah, Gaston, the effort he did on that second goal as well. So, yeah, I mean, just good for the midfield, good for the fact that they are, just again, just having that chemistry and having them play, be the focal point of this team as well. So it's good to see them perform the way they did, perform that the way that they did.
Yeah, that was a very impressive goal from Ricky too. Like the first touch and the placement of the shot, very impressive goal. Definitely a very difficult strike to take on and beat the keeper with, but yeah, he scored it and that was a game-winning goal, and it was great to see.
Yeah, definitely. Like when I was at work when I was watching this game, so it was like and funny enough, I was like I think I was eating lunch already too, so it was like I was watching the game, and as soon as like he got into the position and was gonna take the shot, I was like, this is gonna be a goal, like 100%, this is gonna be a goal. Boom, makes the goal. So it was kind of one of those moments where it's like, yeah, this is where Ricky like kills in this instance, right? Like he was in the position to get that goal, and he got the goal in that one. So it was just like, yeah, definitely for sure it was one of those moments where it's just like, yep, like just it's over. Like you got nothing else to worry about. Like it's gonna go in. So definitely for sure, again, great from Ricky, and just great placement, great shot overall, and just great performance by him for sure. Anything else you want to say about the midfield before we move on?
No, I think they won the battle, and that was really good to see.
Yeah, definitely for sure. If your midfield is playing good, and obviously that's going to be like if your midfield plays good, you're gonna you have a good chance of winning the game. And definitely they played well and we won the game. So good for them. Offense. So offense, you had Gabriel Peck, you had Dejan Joveljic as a striker, and you had Diego Fagundes on the other side. So, of course, the offense, of course, we mentioned Gabriel Peck. He gets a goal and an assist. Dejan Joveljic doesn't, get a goal or anything, or neither does Fagundes gets that. But, of course, they had their game, I guess. Like, I don't know how I would think about their game. Like, I don't know if it was necessarily bad, but it wasn't necessarily good from them either. But, of course, at least you had your DP producing for you in this game. But how'd you feel about the offense in this game, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, Peck was great. Obviously, one goal, one assist. You combine that with what he does defensively, that's going to get the job done. You really like to see that from him. He played very well all night. Joveljic and Fagundes were relatively quiet, especially Joveljic. I just think he needs to find more ways to get involved and be effective, because if he's not getting like kind of spoon-fed in front of the goal, I feel like he's just very isolated and kind of just ghost in a sense. He needs to find ways to get more involved. Fagundes, Played okay, I would say, but also took a back seat to Gabriel Peck and Ricky Pooch, which I mean, fair enough. They had it going all night, so I understand that. But I would just say for Jovic, he needs to find ways to get going. But in terms of Gabriel Peck, our main offensive player, definitely played like a DP, and that was really good to see. He played very well all night.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, we've talked about Gary Playek being involved just seemingly everywhere in the defense and the offense, and of course, he stepped up. Like I said last week, with Joseph Payne still being gone, he needed to step up. This was a game where he stepped up 100% with the goal and the assist. So, I'm not mad about him and or anything like with his performance. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the other ones, Fagundes and Joveljic, it wasn't necessarily like I said, it was just a quiet game for them. And I think Joveljic again, we saw him have a great start this season, and once he got injured, he's slowly working his way back up. So it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously Joveljic needs to get involved a little bit more. He is the top scorer for the Galaxy, I think, at this moment. So again, like he needs to get back into scoring again. Like obviously he's had a great start to the season, but now once we're getting into these games, these middle of the season games and things like that, we're going to need him to step up as well, right? So obviously, it wasn't good. Maybe it wasn't the best performance by him, but at least you had your other DPS like showing up in this game. And yeah, maybe at some point you just had to take the back seat and just let them cook all night and with the way they were performing. So, but yeah, definitely for sure, just needs to get involved a little bit more. And it's not that Joveljic doesn't get involved either, because there's been moments where he's in the build up a lot more this season than he has in past seasons. So like he has the right ideas, but definitely for sure it's just getting a little bit more involved. In this game, he needed to get a little bit more involved for sure.
Peck definitely should have scored when Ricky Pooch made that pass to him. I don't know how he didn't score or at least get it on target. That should have been a goal to make it 3-1, which is a little bit unlucky too, but like I guess it happens.
Yeah, I mean definitely, because it's just like yeah, I don't know. It's just like it should have gone in, but it was just one of those moments where like I don't know. It's like you even mentioned it yourself. Like for Ricky, it's like whenever Ricky passes it to Peck, it just doesn't seem like the finished product is there. It's like it seems weird, like in a sense, but. Yeah, definitely that should have been a goal, but hey, he ended up getting one. He ended up getting one in general, so it's like you can't be too mad about it at all, right? But yeah, definitely when you have those opportunities, you just got to finish them. And so like that was just one of those instances where he should have, but unfortunately it wasn't. But yeah, I mean it is what it is, I guess. Yeah. But anything else you want to say about the offense before we move on?
No, Gabriel Peck stepped up as our DP winger, and that was really good to see.
Yeah, definitely stepped up when we needed him to most. Let's talk about the substitutions. Obviously, you already mentioned it and the way that you felt about Greg Vanney, the way he did use these substitutions. But anybody in the subs that stood out to you in this game?
The subs in general were just perfect, honestly. Like, I felt like every single decision was the right decision, and I mean, finally, right? They didn't take off the DPs, which I think was a great decision with the way they were playing. And like I said, after the Minnesota game, we need our best players on the field to help close out the games, and that's exactly what we had, and they were still, had a lot to give. I think subbing off Audi was a really good decision for Nelson because Nelson had fresher legs, and maybe he's a little more smart defensively, and that was a really good sub. I feel like Sadil was a really good sub. Who else came on? Did Aguirre come on?
He did come on.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good sub too because Aguirre can manage a result. We had a win. He's just plays simple. He does his job really well. Again, I just think the subs were perfect. You took off Fagundes, who looked really tired. You took off Joveljic, who wasn't going to press much. And you took him off at the 85th, 86th minute. You didn't take him off at the 70th minute. So you tried to push for that third goal. You respected the fact that we can get a third goal. But then eventually you took off Joveljic and Fagundes, which was a really good decision to bring on some more defensive players. And you just held down the results. So I would give Vanney his credit. I criticized him last week, rightly so, for the changes he made. But I think this week the subs were absolutely perfect and spot on.
Yeah, it definitely looked like I was about to say Galaxy, but it definitely looked like Vanney definitely read the game correctly this week, right? Because I mentioned last week it was just like he didn't it was like he didn't read the room, right? And I think in this one he made the right decisions. And yeah, obviously, like when you're 2-1, it's not a safe lead, and you want to go for that third goal. So like, yeah, he did respect the fact that maybe we could have gotten that third goal. Unfortunately, we did it. And yeah, like at the 85th minute, you made those subs. You wanted to go more defensive, and obviously, like when it comes to the subs, like they weren't bad subs either. Like those were the subs that were going to close out the games or give you. Just do the right things, right? Like, do the things that to contain this game, make sure it doesn't get out of control. And they definitely, kept it going, kept having control in this game. So it's like, yeah, the subs were great. I think Vanney just, definitely much better than what he did last week. So you got to give him his credit. But yeah, definitely for sure the subs did did their job, and I think that, it was just to contain the game and close it out. So you can't be too mad about that either. And yeah, definitely for sure there were the right choices and the right time to make those choices too, which is something that I've always talked about. So it was the good decisions.
What I really liked about the subs is he didn't take off any of our DP players. Like, he managed to take off offensive players, but he left our best players on the field. That's what I was super happy about.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for sure, because it's like, you got to have those players on, and especially like last week in Minnesota when, obviously the momentum was fully there. And for them, like, you take off your players that were giving you that momentum. So it's like, I think definitely for sure, Vanny, learned from his mistakes and kept them on for sure. Kept them on, for the rest of the game to see if anything could happen, even if there was those moments where, maybe we weren't going to get that third goal, but you just never know, right? Because obviously those players could do something out of nothing, right? So for sure, it was the right decision to keep them on because they are your best players and they're always gonna, give you a chance to even produce more, even like if you have the lead or not. But anyways, those were the players from the game. But of course, anything else you want to say from this game? Any other points that we forgot to mention or anything like that?
Very happy we got the home win. Very happy our DP stepped up. And yeah, just overall very happy. It's a win we needed to get, and I'm glad we got it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a must need. It was a must like needed win for sure. Like we needed this win coming off these like past 5 games, and like we mentioned, this is the start where we're going to get more home games. So this was the best way to open, I guess, this part of the season. Yeah, so it's like getting a win at home in front of your fans, which again it was another good crowd this week. So, getting that win in front of your fans is always a good thing. Now that's their third win at home this season, if I believe. I don't know if you can correct me or not.
I think so. Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, because we beat Seattle, we beat San Jose, and yeah, now we beat Houston. So yeah, third win at home of the season. Of course, we're still undefeated, which is a good thing to have at home. Again, we've talked about having that fortress, and it's been good so far. So definitely got to keep it up at home, and this was one that we needed. But yeah, definitely for sure, good bounce back, win I guess from these past few. So. Great to get those 3 points. But anyways, that was Houston, a 2-1 win over the weekend. Before we get into the previews, let's talk a little bit about Galaxy news. I know we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier before, but Ricky had a interesting post press conference after the game where obviously they mentioned him about his blonde hair and everything like that, and mentioned something about some good news, which was interesting and got people's eyes and lit up and had their attention, right? So he obviously said good news is coming this week, new life, new lifestyle, something along those lines. So yeah, obviously Ricky Puig is teasing something that's going to happen this week. I think I kind of know what that is already, but he teases something. But in your thoughts, what do you think about that? What was your opinion? Or just what do you think is the good news that's coming this week?
Yeah, he said new life, new lifestyle. That sounds like a really good thing. That sounds like a contract extension to me, someone who wants to stay here. So that's what I think it is. And hopefully, yeah, it gets announced soon. That would be great to see.
Yeah, definitely. And which was, I think basically everybody kind of figured out that it was the extension, which by the way, I think it was a few weeks ago where Tom Bogert actually reported that they got an extension done that, it was already going to be happening. So I guess this will be the official announcement of that extension. And yeah, I mean, obviously when you hear good news and then him saying new life, new lifestyle, like, yeah, it was pretty obvious for sure that it was going to be an extension. But, again, when that gets announced, which we're hoping that's what gets announced, it's a big win. It's a big win for both parties, like we've kind of mentioned before. When these types of deals happen, it's good for the player, it's good for the club, good for the player because they get the bag, good for the club because in case Ricky Puig does get moved or somebody wants to buy him, the Galaxy get money in return. So obviously, it's a big win for both sides. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it was kind of, yeah, I mean, it was kind of obvious that that's what it was going to be. At least we hope that's what it's going to be. But yeah, I mean, in terms of a contract extension, you got to be happy about it, right? Just like with the things I mentioned. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, if that contract extension happens, how are you going to feel about that when that gets announced?
Very curious to see the salary for sure, like how much it's going to be a pay raise. I'm very interested to see what it's going to be like or how many years it's going to be for.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And I don't know, because we don't normally, when it comes to MLS contracts, we don't really find that out right away. And you can't even research that type of stuff, which is very kind of disappointing about MLS and about their like contract, like information. But hey, I guess they keep it, they just keep it low key for some reason. But yeah, I'd be curious to see how much that extension's for and, how much more money Ricky Puig is going to get. But at the same time, are you going to be I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be opposed of him getting a pay raise, right? Like, I mean, I think he deserves what the Galaxy are going to give him, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It's just like, you know, I don't think anybody's going to be upset about that. But of course, we'll just wait to see when that gets announced. Hopefully, it gets announced, this week. Well, he said this week, so it should be getting announced. But yeah, obviously, we'll just be waiting to see when that happens for sure. But yeah, I guess that was a little bit of Galaxy news. Of course, there was Ventura County this week. I actually did not get to see what the result was for Ventura County. How did you know how they do this weekend?
Yeah, I watched the game, and unfortunately, they lost 1-0 to Vancouver. There was a close game throughout, but just at the end, they couldn't get over the hump.
Ah, damn. Well, of course, obviously, we're keeping an eye on Vancouver, or not Vancouver, but we're keeping an eye on Ventura County, this season because, they've been playing very well. Was this home or was this away for them? I don't,
They're away.
okay. So, yeah, I mean, assuming, it's like regular MLS, I guess. I'm assuming playing away in MLS Next Pro is also difficult. So it's like, and especially going to Vancouver. So it's like, yeah, I mean, unfortunate for Ventura County, but of course, one loss does not define them. I'm assuming they're still first in the conference. Again, I've not been keeping up that much with Ventura County, but I'm assuming they're still up there in the standings in terms of the Western Conference.
They're in third place, but still, they're still in a good position right now.
Still in a good position. Hey, you can't be mad about that right now. So, of course, Ventura County. Hopefully, they get a bounce back game for their next game, whenever that is. But of course, yeah, unfortunate, but definitely for sure, it happens. Winning on the road isn't easy. So, but like I said, hopefully they get the bounce back. The bounce back next week. So. But anyways, that was some Galaxy news, just a little bit of Galaxy news and Ventura County updates. So I guess now we can just go into the previews that are happening this week. So let's start off with the Wednesday game. FC Dallas this week at home. Of course, the Galaxy coming off again a win this weekend. Hopefully, trying to build that win or hopefully build that momentum going into this next home game against FC Dallas. So. What are your thoughts against FC Dallas going in this week, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, obviously FC Dallas is a name a lot of Galaxy fans do not like to hear, right, over recent years. In the last 15 times we played FC Dallas, our record is 2 wins for the Galaxy, 2 draws, and 11 Dallas wins. It's been very difficult against them in the last 4 games. We've lost to them 4 straight times, and 3 of those 4 games were multiple goal losses. So just recently, Dallas has absolutely just dominated the Galaxy. It's been very rough. But I mean, hey, it's another big opportunity, right? At home, in front of our own fans, coming off a good win against Houston, playing another Texas team. Dallas had a 3-0 lead at home against Real Salt Lake and blew it to tie 3-3. So I think something that's very important for the Galaxy this game is they need to come in and get off to a really good start, really challenge FC Dallas. They're probably questioning themselves, especially in midfield and defense right now after they blew a 3-0 lead at home. So make that doubt become a reality and really try to put it to them early on. You got to come out with the intensity, the focus. And that's been a really big problem against FC Dallas too in recent years, like especially at home. Like in 2022, we were down 3-0 20 minutes into the game, and in last year, we were down 4-1 at halftime, and we conceded a goal like 3 minutes into the game. So the start is crucial for the Galaxy. We really need to get off to a good start. Really got to make this opponent doubt themselves. Really got to challenge them. And yeah, at home, it's a big test. It's a big opportunity, and hopefully we can pick up a second win. But it's going to be difficult when you consider how Dallas has matched up versus us in recent years.
Yeah, definitely always a tough opponent going up against FC Dallas. And also not to mention our last home game of the season last year was against FC Dallas, which was, not so great. Obviously it wasn't a great season. And again, ended off the season pretty bad with that FC Dallas loss, right? So it's like, and we kind of mentioned this, when we were going into Minnesota, it's like, we want to kind of show that wasn't, that's not who we are. That was last year's team. And, this year they're going to try to do the same thing against that FC Dallas team, right? Try to, show them like, hey, you beat us last year in the end of the season. And on decision day, I believe it was, because I think if we would have beaten them, they could have gotten out of the playoffs or something like that. But still though, it's just like, you want to show that team. It's like, we're not the same what we were last year, or a much different team. And yeah, right now, FC Dallas probably hasn't had, they're not having a bad season, but it's not the seasons that, that they had before and things like that. I believe they're somewhere between barely in a playoff spot, or maybe like just one off a playoff spot. But still though, it's like, it's a tough team that we haven't really beaten that much. And like you mentioned, the last 4, we haven't beaten them. So it's like, we just got to make sure we got to go in with the right mindset, right mentality against this FC Dallas team. And again, like this team has played well at home, so I think, going in at home again, keeping that momentum that we had from Houston is going to be crucial. And again, like you mentioned, like we got to go in there, set the tone, and make sure we get something right out the gate rather than trying to build up like we have been these past few games.
Yeah, the start is extra important this game because, like I mentioned earlier, we've gotten down against FC Dallas a lot and early. So I think the start is very important. After Dallas blew a 3-0 lead at home, too, I think you really got to try to put it to them and put them under pressure early. Because once a team is kind of doubting themselves, like FC Dallas might be, I think, you really got to put it to them early and try to make certain decisions. And it's going to be difficult early on. But if you let them grow in confidence into the match, it could be a lot more of a difficult game because FC Dallas is still a good team. They have a lot of pieces, a lot of weapons like Peter Musa, who's a $9 million striker, Ariola, Ferreira, Yaramendi, Paez is a good goalkeeper. I mean, they have a lot of really good players, so we really got to come out ready to play this game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dallas always has had pretty good squads. They still got good players, so that's why I don't think this is necessarily a game the Galaxy, are going to downplay at all. Obviously it's a Western Conference, game, so this is important in terms of standings and things like that, right? So it's like you want to keep winning those conference games. So, and again, like you just got to make sure we go in there with the right mindset and go in right away. And although this Galaxy team is capable of coming back, I don't necessarily think that's always the best way to, you know, I guess win games or tie games or just get points. It's like, you got to go in there with the right mindset. Because if you maybe do try to play slowly and then build up into the game, maybe it might be too late. Maybe Dallas already has 2 goals in the first half or something like that, right? So again, like it's not like you mentioned, it's not trying to build up that confidence for them. It's trying to, just get it done right away. Make them doubt themselves and make sure they're, I guess just try to just I don't know, just try to get it right away. So it's just like that. That's just the mindset, not necessarily try to build slowly into this game.
Yeah, definitely for sure. After they blew a 3-0 lead at home, definitely it's very important to come at them quickly. Got to get
Yeah,
off to that good start. We cannot afford to go behind early. And it's a very tough team, too. It's a team we've had a lot of matchup problems against, so I think, starting off well will be very important for us. And finishing
yeah.
well. We got to play a complete game if we want to win. That's what it takes in this league.
Oh yeah, definitely for sure. Definitely just got to play a complete game and try to, again you're at home, so it's like you're gonna have to try to, you know, do the best you can to get those 3 points at home, and you got to take advantage of those home points, right? So, hopefully we'll see what happens. But any other points you want to talk about FC Dallas, or should we move on to Chicago?
No, I mean, similar to Houston, they're very similar in the table, probably a similar caliber of opponent having similar seasons so far this year. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, kind of expect similar things maybe. Maybe Dallas has a little bit more quality, but yeah, I mean, it's another good chance for the Galaxy at home, right? We're back at home. This is the first time all year we've had 2 home games in a row, so let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Because like again, got to just take those advantage of the home points. Even though ties are not terrible, but still though we're kind of tired with ties anyways with how we've been playing, right? So you got to get those 3 points at home and take the most advantage of it. Especially after that you're going on the road, right? So got to take advantage of those points at home for sure. But let's move into Chicago actually, which is going to be this Saturday. So of course you're gonna have another away game in Chicago at Soldier Field. Chicago, not necessarily, again, an opponent that's not necessarily the best right now. I think the last time we played Chicago was last season, right, where we tied 1-1. So obviously,
No.
or was it,
No,
or did we lose
that's
that
wrong.
game?
No, we won 3-0. We won 3-0.
Didn't we go a tie? Oh no, I think because I was trying to remind me. I think there was one game where we had it's kind of similar to this week where it was we had a double week game and I think we tied one of them and then yeah, that was the one where we won. So yeah, my bad. That was on me. But still though, regardless, the last time we played Chicago, I guess it was, good for us. We got a 3-0 win against Chicago. So what are your thoughts going up against Chicago, or what are your thoughts about that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very interesting game for sure, depending on how the Dallas game goes, what approach we're going to take, who we're going to play in that game. It's obviously one road game before we come back home for 2 again. So that would be interesting, but in terms of the opponent, Chicago is obviously just very bad, honestly. They look like a very bad team. They're very far down the standings. They haven't won in 8 games. They look like they lack a lot of quality. Their DPs look like they don't want to be there. Even some of their new signings haven't been integrated right. The coaching's questionable. I mean, The Dallas game will be interesting to see how much energy we have after that game. And obviously, the Galaxy themselves are kind of an inconsistent team. And on the road, too, sometimes we play for ties and sometimes we come out flat. So, I mean, I don't know. It's very unpredictable. But when you look at the opponent, it feels like a very winnable game because this Chicago team has just been very bad. And it feels like even without Joseph Painter, the Galaxy still have more than enough quality to possibly go out and win this game.
Yeah, definitely. Chicago seems a lot more manageable to play at, even if it's away. I think it's probably looking like a lot more manageable matchup. And yeah, I mean, obviously Chicago right now is just not in the best of. I guess right now just not like in terms of a club right now, just probably not the best of where they want to be. So obviously, when you look at that, it's just like, maybe the Galaxy do have a pretty good chance of getting something in Chicago. But I guess in terms of that, like, don't you think that could be a little bit of a trap game? Maybe the Galaxy going a little too overconfident going against Chicago, or do you think this is just kind of like just like, nah, we shouldn't really think about that. It's just more like, I don't know, just play the way the Galaxy could play their game. But I don't know if you felt if that could be a sort of a thing for that Chicago matchup.
I think overconfidence the wrong word. I would just say like maybe a little bit unfocused because you got two more home games coming after that. Like you have a very important game this Wednesday against FC Dallas. Then you're going on the road after a Wednesday game. Like you could be a little bit tired, maybe a little distracted. I don't think it's confidence. I think it might be distracted. And then Chicago's obviously desperate for a win, right? They haven't won in 8 games. They're going to be wanting to get their win against us eventually, especially at home too, in front of their fans that are there. So I think just maybe not as engaged as we need to be would be the right way to put it if that was to be a possibility.
Okay, yeah, so definitely, I get what you mean. So, yeah, I mean, I guess with just with how much that the Galaxy have right now, it could be more just trying not to be as distracted as they could. And I guess since the fact that we do have 2 games this week, which one do you think? Like, do you think this Chicago game could be more of the game where we seem to rotate a little bit more, and then this FC Dallas game we kind of go with sort of the same lineup that we had this weekend? Like, is that how you feel like the Galaxy should kind of approach this week?
Absolutely. At home, I think the Galaxy should go all in for this FC Dallas game. It's a conference opponent. It's another game after we just got a win at home. I think we need to go all in on Wednesday. Try to build off what we did Saturday. And then Chicago, maybe we can rotate a little bit. We're on the road for one game, 3 days later after a Wednesday game. Maybe not rotate completely. Like, I'd still play the DPs and, like, Jovic and stuff, but maybe give Garces a chance, give Mikovic a chance, give maybe Nelson another start. I mean, I don't know. Things like that maybe would be kind of good, or Cedillo a start. Just giving some of our more dependable players, some depth players, a chance. But, yeah, I think Wednesday absolutely is a game we should go more all in because it's at home and against a conference opponent.
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously, if you lose against the Eastern Conference team, it's like sure you lose points, but it doesn't necessarily affect the standings, right? It doesn't necessarily affect, I guess because obviously FC Dallas, if you lose that one, that obviously each game affects the standings, but obviously if you're playing someone within your conference, that affects the standings a little bit more than going up against someone in the East because that they're not in your conference. So it's like that's not really going to affect much on the West. So yeah, I mean obviously if you look at Chicago, it's just more of a I feel like more of a rotation game. And I think, yeah, it's like, just give some guys some of those depth pieces some starts. And, obviously we'll see what they do and in terms of that. But definitely for sure, Chicago seems like the game where you have to rotate a little bit more rather than FC Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of rotating, I kind of have a question I've been thinking about a little bit. This Wednesday, do you go with Mikovic or McCarthy? Because you can make a good argument for both. Like, you could say you don't want to take out McCarthy because of, if you took him out, that would lower his confidence, and then it makes the margin for error on this team smaller. It feels like players can't make mistakes. But at the same time, you got to earn your spot. So if you gave Mikovic the start, maybe it would make the defense feel more comfortable and more confident. I mean, I don't know. I've been kind of thinking about that. Has Mikovic kind of earned a start after McCarthy made that mistake again? And Mikovic did get a clean sheet last time he played, so there's that. I mean, which way would you go in that aspect on Wednesday? Because I've kind of am in between that.
I say still start McCarthy, and here's why. Because I said this last week, when we talked about the Charlotte game, and people were saying oh, Mikovic got a clean sheet, he should be the starter, and I said I think I said something oh, even if McCarthy would have started, I think he probably would have gotten the clean sheet because of that, the way both teams performed.
Maybe not.
I mean, I don't know. It just didn't seem like both teams that game didn't have much to offer. So it was just that's why I'm saying maybe McCarthy would still probably have gotten the clean sheet in that game. So it's I obviously Mikovic does things a lot better than McCarthy. Obviously we talk about distribution, definitely better than McCarthy. But still though I don't know because it's just I don't think it's time to pull the plug on McCarthy just yet. Obviously, there's going to be other chances where Mikovic gets integrated because Vanny has said that this season that he's going to get more starts, right? So maybe it's not necessarily the fact that we need to take out McCarthy just yet. Yes, I understand that the mistake that he did against Houston was terrible. Like no, like that wasn't just if any goalkeeper did that, that they would be getting the same I guess criticism. So it's like like I don't know. I don't feel like you should take out McCarthy just yet. Because like you mentioned, it's like that lowers down his confidence. And then let's say we do give Mikovic the start, and then he gets, he doesn't do as well. So then it's like, all right, we're gonna put McCarthy back, and that creates problems. You know what I mean? So it's like that creates like the fact of like you lowered this guy's confidence down. The other guy didn't perform it better, and then now this guy's confidence down, and you're putting him back in the start. Like you get what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, definitely, but I mean, I guess the argument you can make for Mikovic is that like he would make the defense feel a lot more comfortable and maybe more confident in themselves in the way they want to play instead of McCarthy, getting the ball to the other team. Or like every time an opponent pressured McCarthy, you were just like, oh shit, that whole game basically. Like I don't think you would feel that with Mikovic. And it's kind of funny enough, like we kind of like maybe slightly joked about like, oh, McCarthy would have still kept a clean sheet in Charlotte. Well, if he's making mistakes like that, well then maybe he wouldn't have kept a clean sheet. But I mean, to be fair, he hasn't really made that many mistakes like that all season. Yes, his distribution is not great, but it hasn't really cost us a goal. But I mean, I think the response from McCarthy has to be a bounce back game, right? As a veteran player, as an MLS Cup MVP, he knows what he needs to do, and hopefully he can bounce back from that if he does get another start. Which I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'd give Mikovic the start to make the defense feel more confident, but you can also make a good case for McCarthy too.
Like I said, I think you still keep McCarthy in this game, and like you mentioned, like Chicago is going to be the game where you might rotate, a bit more, and I think that's a good game for Mikovic, right? Like you go against an opponent that maybe not necessarily the best, won't affect you that much within the standings, and so it's like, yeah, it's like that's probably a better matchup for Mikovic to get his minutes to adjust better, and so but I think for this game you go with McCarthy again. Um, and again, I wasn't even joking about the whole clean sheet. I genuinely think that that if McCarthy was in that Charlotte game, he probably would have gotten the same thing. And also, let's not forget, Mikovic almost, did a similar mistake in that game, where, or well, not similar mistake, but almost, the goal almost, slipped by him and went in the goal. So it's like, there's moments too. But again, I don't blame Mikovic on that either. It's like that was his first game, so I'm not gonna give him too much shit on that. But still, though, I think you give McCarthy the start in this game, and whatever happens, then yeah, it's like, maybe you'd start deciding whether you put Mikovic or not. But for this game, I say you go with McCarthy.
I mean, it's pretty obvious we're going to go with the same offense if we're going full strength and the same midfield. But with the center backs, would you still go with the veteran center backs or give a young player a chance on Wednesday? I would personally go with the veteran center backs yet again to set another presence because I think they did really good last game and you have to ride with that.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously, like, I mean, I would say, like, maybe you could go younger, but, like, because they got the win, I think, yeah, they kind of do deserve, the start again. Like we mentioned, if you get a win or you have a good performance, you deserve the start, right? But obviously, like you mentioned, FC Dallas has a little bit more quality in their team compared to Houston. Like obviously, they have Ferreira, they have Ariola, players like that. They're going to be, you know, difference makers for them, and sometimes it's hard for us to contain them. So it's like maybe you do go a little bit younger, but I think if you want to go with just how they performed last week, then yes, you should start them. But you could also make the argument that you can start one of the younger guys like Jalen Neal, for example.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, any other points you want to talk about for the Chicago game or the Dallas game? Just any of these games in general going this week.
Yeah, it feels very good to finally be back at home 2 times in a row for the first time all season, and hopefully we can make it count.
Yeah, definitely for sure. That's going to be yeah. I mean, still we're going into this part of the season where we're going to get more home games, and yeah, it's pretty crazy that we're finally getting back to back home games this part of the season. So it's good to see that as well. And yeah, hopefully we just keep that momentum with from the Houston game. And then in terms of the Chicago game, like obviously we'll see depending on how they do good against FC Dallas. But yeah, obviously if Chicago we can get a result there, like that'd be great as well. Going in on Saturday. But I think but I think in terms of this week, I think the main one is just the Dallas game. You want to get the maximum points, at home. So yeah, that's going to be the more important game this week. Hopefully, so. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we just, like we always say, we can only hope for the best, right?
Definitely, yeah. I think both games are important too. You always want to win every single game you're playing against. But yeah, I would agree. Definitely at home, the Dallas game has to be our priority to try to get full 3 points.
Yeah, definitely for sure. But hopefully it's gonna be a tough week this week, but with that game from Houston, hopefully we build off with the momentum. But anyways, I think that's gonna do it for the episode this week. If you all want to follow me on social media, follow me at Insider Galaxy on Instagram, on X. If you want to go follow on LA Galaxy Central on IG, go follow him there. Do you have anything you want to say to the listeners and the followers before we go?
Hopefully we pick up some points this week. That'd be really good for us.
Yeah, hopefully to get some more points this week. So gotta build up. But yeah, and also show up, show out. For these games. As a fan, you should. So hope. But anyways, be a friend, tell a friend about the podcast whenever you're listening to the podcast. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, rest of your night, and just rest of your week in general, since this is going to be an early, episode this week. So hopefully y'all have a good week. Everything good goes for you guys. But thank you all for listening and watching. So, thank you guys for the support, and G's up.
7 words.